Hi everybody. This is my response for discussion 2 for analytics titled Trends, Measuring, and Reports. And really quickly, I wanted to talk a little bit about the two chapters we read in the last 2 weeks, chapter 14 and 15. Really briefly, they talked a little bit about reports such as preview and permission reports and views and such, and so on. And of course, they talked a little bit more about the customization and functionality. So, for example, with Google Analytics, you only need like one Google Analytics account, and you can like monitor multiple sites with it. Give different permissions to different users, so some users can just view the Google Analytics account, some can actually edit it, some can actually manage other users, so on and so on. But this week we had a couple of interesting readings, and one of them was by Avinash Kaushik. I apologize if I butchered his name, but Avinash actually speaks a little bit about how to break into the web analytics industry. And he is actually a world-renowned expert on analytics. He pretty much knows more about analytics than most people. And one thing that he actually mentions, and this can be applied to most professions, is to have a strong foundation. For us personally, we are learning how to use Google Analytics. We're learning about reports. We're learning about terminology such as bounce rates and conversions. And for example, if somebody comes to our site, only looks at the first page and then leaves it immediately, that's part of our bounce rate. And pretty much showing us how we can compile, monitor, and analyze data, where users are coming from, why are they coming to our site, what type of demographics are coming to our site. We're learning more about cookies and so on and so on. So once you have that foundation with something like Google Analytics, for example, then you can kind of see where you want to go. So, for example, if I want to go more into the technical side of analytics, maybe I want to refine our Java code a little bit. Maybe I want to refine or develop cookies, new cookies that may accurately or more accurately monitor users in comparison. Or maybe I want to go on the more the business and marketing side. I want to see and monitor what type of demographics are coming to our website or a company's website. Why are they coming? Are they coming from Google? Where are we in the search engine optimization? What can we do to improve and bring in more traffic to our site? So there are different types of paths you can go as long as you have that solid foundation. But two trends that I really want to talk about. One trend is the growth, I guess, or the reliance on data-driven decision-making and processes. So companies like Google, Microsoft, Apple, obviously they spend a lot of money and resources on gathering, compiling, and using data. So, for example, and I mentioned this in my previous discussion with Apple, they constantly are monitoring who's buying what type of apps are being downloaded on their mobile devices, what type of users. So, for example, are more males downloading this app? Are more younger people using this app? What people are buying from our iTunes store? Or with Windows and Microsoft, they're monitoring on Windows 10 what people are using, what people are not using, where can they improve. And the problem with this is that a lot of smaller companies won't really have access to this type of data. Now, you might be able to argue that they really don't need that type of data or that type of information, but they will to a certain extent. Maybe obviously not to the level that Microsoft is using data, but say you have, for example, a small shop or business owner, and he'll monitor what's selling and what's not via inventory. What's selling, he'll order more of. What's not selling, he most likely won't order more of it for his shop. But how is he going to monitor what type of demographics are coming in? What type of, like, how are people hearing about his business? Is it word of mouth? Is it something like Yelp? He really won't have as much access to that data. And it is kind of important because when you have that data, that's how you see shortcomings, that's how you see room for improvement and growth. And in order for businesses to improve, they are going to have access to that. So even though a lot of companies won't ever have that type of access that someone like Microsoft with their resources or Google and Apple that they'll have, we are going to get to a point, I feel, that you are going to have to, let's say for example, you do have a website for your small business. How are people coming to my website? How am I getting traffic, and how can I get more traffic, for example? And that's kind of where data-driven decision making is going to come in. The other trend that I see is the use of security for digital currencies. Now, some of us might have heard of a little something called, and I'll actually bring it up here on my screen, called Bitcoin. Now, Bitcoin is a digital currency, and companies like Amazon and Home Depot and CVS use Bitcoin now. And one thing about digital currency is, how do you prevent fraud? How do you prevent counterfeit money? Well, enter blockchain. Blockchain is basically, I guess you could think of it as a ledger. Actually, it stays right here. It's kind of a ledger for digital currency and digital assets, and it kind of just tracks where assets have been. What has this has this Bitcoin currency been through? What has it been used on? And if somebody has counterfeit money and it has no Bitcoin or blockchain history, then most likely it's counterfeit. And I guess blockchain is kind of going to be a requirement, because even though some people might see it as a violation of privacy, I personally don't think that, because once you use your Bitcoin, it's no longer your money. I mean, if you go to a store and you use money to buy something, that money is no longer your concern after you use it. And I kind of think that the same thing applies here with Bitcoin.